I won the biggest lottery prize in my state's history, $384 million, but I decided not to tell anyone. I wanted to test my family, so I called them pretending to be broke and desperate for help. My mom hung up without a second thought. My brother called me a failure. But my little sister got in her car and drove almost 200 miles, using the last $500 she had. What I did after that changed everything. When I saw the winning numbers on the screen, I didn't scream or jump. I just sat there, staring at them, while my hands started shaking so hard I dropped the remote. $384 million. The biggest jackpot in our state's history. My name on that ticket. For about 2 hours, I didn't move. I kept checking the numbers, refreshing the page, whispering the sequence like it was some kind of code that might vanish if I said it too loud. When it finally sank in, I didn't feel joy. I felt fear. The kind that crawls under your skin and makes you question everything you thought you knew about people. Because I knew my family, and I knew what money did to them. Growing up, money was always the thing that decided whether we were fighting or pretending to love each other. My mom used to say she'd rather die than be poor again, but she never cared who she stepped on to make that happen. My brother, Mark, followed her example, always chasing something, always angry when someone else had more. And then there was Lily, my little sister, 7 years younger than me. She used to sneak into my room at night when our parents fought and whisper that one day we'd both leave and never come back. She was the only person I ever really trusted, so when I realized I was now richer than everyone I'd ever met combined, I didn't feel like celebrating. I felt like testing something I'd never been able to test before, who actually loved me when I had nothing to offer. That's how the idea started. The next morning, I put the ticket in a small fireproof box and locked it inside a storage unit under a fake name. Then I called my mom. I told her my business had collapsed, that I was behind on rent, and that I didn't even have money for food. She didn't even hesitate. She said she couldn't help and hung up before I could finish the sentence. Mark was next. I told him I'd been evicted, that I needed a place to crash for a few nights. He laughed and said, "Maybe now you'll learn to stop pretending you're better than everyone." Then he blocked me. When I called Lily, she didn't say anything at first. Just silence, and then, "Where are you?" I told her I was in a motel near Springfield, that I didn't know what to do. She said she'd be there soon. It was a lie, of course. I was at home, sitting on my couch, phone in hand, waiting to see what she'd actually do. 4 hours later, she texted, "I'm halfway there. Please don't go anywhere." I froze. I asked her how she was coming. She said she was driving. I knew she didn't have much money left. She'd just quit her job a week ago to start nursing school. I asked her if she could afford the trip. She said she'd use what she had left, 200 miles, $500, just to check if her brother was okay. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling this mix of guilt and awe. She was the only one who didn't ask for proof, didn't hesitate, didn't make it about herself. When she finally showed up at the motel, the one I told her I was staying in, I wasn't there. She called, panicked, and I told her the truth. I said, "Lily, I'm fine. I just needed to know who would really be there for me." She didn't answer. The line was quiet for a few seconds, then she said, "You made me think you were in trouble. I drove all night. I sold my laptop to afford gas." Her voice cracked. And that sound, that tiny broken sound, made me realize I had gone too far. I tried to explain that it was about trust, that I'd been hurt so many times before, that I needed to see who actually cared. But the more I talked, the more I knew it didn't matter. I'd betrayed the only person who didn't deserve it. She said, "You wanted to know who cared? Now you know." Then she hung up. That night, I sat in my car outside her apartment. Her lights were off. I didn't go in. I just stayed there until sunrise, holding the lottery ticket in my hand and realizing that for the first time in my life, I couldn't buy my way out of what I'd done, and what I decided to do next changed everything. The next morning, I drove to Lily's apartment before she could leave for class. I expected her to slam the door in my face, and honestly, I would have deserved it. But she opened it, stood there with swollen eyes and messy hair, and didn't say a word. I told her I was sorry, not the kind of sorry people say to make things go away, but the kind that makes your throat close up because you know it won't fix anything. I told her she was the only one who ever treated me like a person, not a resource. She didn't look at me. She just said she needed to get ready for school and asked me to leave, so I did. That should have been the end of it. I should have let her go live her life and tried to rebuild whatever trust I'd shattered, slowly, quietly. But every time I looked at that ticket, I thought about how she'd driven almost 200 miles, used the last of her money and sold her laptop, all for me, while everyone else couldn't even pretend to care. The guilt started turning into something else. I wanted to make it right. I wanted to fix it, but not in the obvious way. I didn't want to just hand her cash and make her suspicious. If she ever found out what I'd done, or how much money I really had, it could ruin everything again. So I made a plan. I set up a trust fund under a fake donor name, the Henson Foundation. It sounded official enough. Through it, I arranged for Lily to receive a scholarship for nursing students who'd left their jobs to study full-time. $10,000 up front, and a yearly stipend after that. When I got the confirmation email that she'd been awarded the scholarship, I felt like I could finally breathe again. A week later, she called me. Her voice sounded lighter, hopeful. She said she didn't know how it happened, but she'd been chosen for a small private scholarship, one that would cover almost all of her tuition. She thanked me for encouraging her to apply to programs like that months ago, even though I'd never mentioned anything about it. I congratulated her. She said she wanted to start fresh between us. She still didn't fully forgive me, but she said she wanted to try. For a while, everything went quiet. I kept my secret. I stayed in my old apartment, still drove my same beat-up car. I even went to work for a few weeks, pretending everything was normal while my bank account quietly grew from interest alone. But secrets have a way of creating new cracks where you least expect them. About 2 months later, I got a text from Mark. It just said, "Heard you came into money." I froze. My first thought was that he'd somehow found out about the lottery, but when I asked what he meant, he replied, "Mom said you were paying for Lily's school. Must be nice having cash again." I didn't respond. But that night, when I checked my security footage from the storage unit, yes, I'd installed my own camera, I saw that someone had tried to break in. The padlock was damaged. The ticket was still there, but someone had been close. Too close. The next morning, I got a call from my mom. She sounded cheerful, the way she only ever did when she wanted something. She said she was proud of me for getting back on my feet and hinted that she and Mark might need help with a few bills. I told her I couldn't help. Her voice changed. She said, "Funny, that's not what I heard." That's when I realized Lily must have mentioned the scholarship, not knowing where it came from. My family thought it was my money, not a random grant. By that afternoon, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Mark called 6 times, left a voicemail saying I owed the family for everything they'd done for me. And then, around midnight, I got another text. No name, no greeting. Just, "If you think you can hide what you've done, you're wrong. We know about the ticket." I felt my whole body go numb. The only person who even knew about that ticket was me, or at least that's what I thought. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table staring at my phone, reading that message over and over. We know about the ticket. There were no follow-ups, no threats, nothing else. Just that one line sitting there like a loaded gun in my inbox. At first, I thought it had to be a scam. Maybe someone overheard something or guessed, but no one could possibly know. I'd bought the ticket in a small convenience store 2 towns over, paid in cash, and never told a soul. Even the claim process had been done through a trust, under a lawyer's name. There was no way to trace it back to me, unless someone had seen me that day. I checked the timestamp of the message again, 12:42 a.m. Whoever sent it knew what they were doing. They wanted me to lose sleep. The next morning, I went straight to the storage unit. The lock looked fine this time, but my camera feed was gone. The system had been wiped clean. No video, no data, just an error screen. That's when it hit me. The person who broke in last time wasn't just trying to steal something. They were checking to see if the ticket was real. I opened the fireproof box and counted twice. The ticket was still there, untouched, but my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I didn't even trust myself with it anymore. That same day, I called my lawyer, the one who'd helped me set up the anonymous trust to claim the prize. His name was Patrick Hale. I told him I was worried about security and asked if anyone could access the records. He said the information was sealed, that even he didn't know my personal details anymore since everything was transferred under the foundation name, but he hesitated before hanging up. He asked if someone close to me might have found out. I didn't answer. Because the truth was, there was only one person who could have pieced things together, Lily. I didn't want to believe it, but she was the only one who'd noticed how strange I'd been acting. She'd even joked once about how I was weirdly calm for someone supposedly broke. Maybe she'd checked something. Maybe she'd seen me near the storage unit. That night, I drove to her apartment again. She opened the door wearing her scrubs, hair tied up, exhausted but smiling a little. She said she was about to leave for her clinical rotation. I asked if we could talk. She looked confused but said sure. I told her someone had sent me a threatening message, that they knew about the lottery ticket. She frowned and asked what ticket. I watched her face the entire time, waiting for a reaction. There wasn't one. Just concern. She said maybe it was spam, that people send that kind of stuff all the time. I almost believed her, until she said something I hadn't told anyone. She said, "You're probably just stressed. You've been driving to that storage place too often lately." My heart dropped. I asked her how she knew that. She looked startled and said she'd seen my car there when she was visiting a friend nearby. She swore it was just coincidence. I wanted to believe that so badly, but it didn't feel like coincidence anymore. I left without saying another word. The next day, I moved the ticket. I didn't even tell Patrick. I found a small bank in a different county and rented a new safety deposit box. No cameras, no paper trail under my name. For a few days, everything went quiet. No more messages, no calls from my family. I started to think maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe Lily really hadn't done anything. Then, one evening, while I was getting groceries, I got another text. "She knows you don't trust her. She told us everything." I froze in the middle of the aisle. My phone buzzed again. "You shouldn't have moved it." That time, the message came with a photo. Grainy, dark, but clear enough. It was a picture of me, standing outside the new bank. The exact one where I'd moved the ticket 3 days earlier. Someone had been following me. I didn't know who or how, but they were always one step ahead. And if they knew where the ticket was again, then I wasn't just being watched. I was being hunted. I drove straight home after that message, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Every time headlights flashed behind me, I thought it might be them, whoever they were. When I got inside, I locked every door and window, turned off my lights, and sat on the floor in the dark. I kept rereading the message, trying to make sense of it. She told us everything. It couldn't be Lily. It just couldn't. But at the same time, it made too much sense. She knew about the scholarship money, about my fake story, about the storage unit. Maybe she'd felt betrayed, and telling our mom and Mark was her way of getting back at me. Still, something didn't fit. My family was selfish, but they weren't clever. The messages, the photo outside the bank, those were precise, calculated. That wasn't them. The next morning, I went to Lily's place again. Her car was gone, but her neighbor told me she'd left early for class. I waited in my car outside the building until her shift ended. When she came out, I got out of the car and called her name. She froze when she saw me. I told her we needed to talk, that I was scared, that someone was threatening me. I could tell she wanted to walk away, but she saw my face and hesitated. We sat in my car. I told her about the texts, about the photo, about how someone knew where the ticket was. Her eyes widened when I said that word, ticket. She said, "Wait, you're saying you actually won?" That's when I realized. She hadn't known at all. I hadn't told her, and the fake scholarship had made her believe it came from somewhere else. She wasn't lying before. She really didn't know. My stomach sank. That meant the messages weren't from her or our family, which meant someone else had been watching both of us. She asked how much it was. When I said 384 million, she just whispered, "Oh my God." I told her everything, how I'd tested everyone, how only she'd shown up, how I'd tried to make it right with the scholarship. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she said, "You made me think you were broke. You made me drive across the state. And now you're telling me you've been hiding almost $400 million?" I nodded. She turned away, shaking her head. "You don't understand what that did to me. I thought you were gone. I thought I lost my brother." I wanted to tell her I was trying to protect her, but that sounded hollow, so I just said I was sorry. Before she got out of the car, she said something that stuck with me. "Money makes people cruel. Don't let it make you stupid, too." When she closed the door and walked away, I felt like something inside me cracked. That night, I got another message. This one was different, longer, colder. "You're not careful enough. You think hiding the ticket will save you? It won't. People talk. Lawyers talk. Someone always wants a cut. You'll give us what's ours, or we'll take it from her." Her. They meant Lily. I called her immediately, but she didn't pick up. I drove to her place again. Lights off, no car, no sign of her. I called hospitals, friends, even her school. No one had seen her since she left the clinic that afternoon. I was halfway to the police station when I got another message. It was a photo of Lily, sitting in her car, head down, unharmed, but clearly unaware that someone was taking the picture. The caption said, "You have 48 hours. I pulled over, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my fingers went numb. Whoever these people were, they knew everything. My routines, my family, my secrets, and they had just made one thing very clear. This wasn't about the money anymore. It was about control. I didn't go home that night. I drove aimlessly for hours, switching between highways, watching the mirrors until my eyes hurt. Every time I thought about Lily, that photo flashed in my mind. Her sitting in her car, completely unaware someone was close enough to take it. I couldn't go to the police. That was my first instinct, but it didn't make sense. If I told them the truth, I'd have to explain the ticket, the money, the fake identity, everything. I'd become the story. And whoever sent those messages, they clearly had reach. They'd found out where the ticket was twice. That meant they could find me again, or her. By morning, I decided I needed to move the ticket one last time, somewhere impossible to trace. But before that, I had to make sure Lily was safe. I called her again. No answer. Texted her. Nothing. Then around 10 a.m., I got a message from her number. I'm fine. Stop calling. I just need space. Except it didn't sound like her. Lily always texted with punctuation, full words. This was short, cold, mechanical. I asked her where she was. No reply. That's when I realized whoever had sent the earlier threats probably had her phone now. I went to her apartment again. The door was locked, no signs of a break-in, but something felt wrong. The curtains were slightly open, and inside I saw her laptop on the coffee table. The screen was cracked, like someone had thrown it. I called her friend, Marissa. They worked at the same clinic. She said Lily hadn't shown up for her shift, and no one had heard from her all morning. I didn't tell her anything else. I just thanked her and hung up. By noon, I was sitting in my car in the parking lot of the storage facility again. Not the new one where the ticket was, but the first one. I don't even know why I went there. Maybe to think. Maybe because it was the last place I'd felt in control. That's when I saw the same gray sedan that had been behind me the night before, parked across the street, engine running, tinted windows. It didn't move when I did. I started the car, drove 2 blocks, pulled into a gas station, and waited. A few minutes later, the same sedan passed by slowly, like they were checking if I was still there. My hands were shaking. I waited another 10 minutes, then got back on the road and drove in the opposite direction. By the time I reached the next town, I already had a new plan forming in my head. Something desperate, but maybe the only way to protect both the ticket and Lily. If these people wanted control, I'd take it away from them. I'd make the ticket useless. I found a small diner near the highway, parked, and went inside. I sat in the back booth, ordered coffee, and pulled out my phone. There were 3 missed calls from an unknown number. Then another message came through. We said 48 hours, you're already wasting time. Attached was a video clip. Short, shaky, and filmed from inside a dimly lit room. Lily's voice came through first. She sounded scared but trying to stay calm. She said, "Please just tell him to do what they want. Don't let them," and then it cut off. I dropped the phone. People at nearby tables turned to look. I muttered that I'd spilled coffee and excused myself. Outside, I leaned against the car and tried to breathe. I couldn't go to the police, and not yet. I didn't even know who I was dealing with, but one thing was clear. They wanted the ticket, and they thought I'd trade anything for it. And they were right. By sunset, I was back in the bank's parking lot, waiting for the manager to close up. When he finally left, I broke into the back alley near the loading dock, the same one I'd used to access the private boxes after hours once before. I wasn't thinking clearly anymore. I just knew that if I could move the ticket somewhere, or destroy it, they'd have nothing left to use against me. But before I even reached the door, my phone vibrated again. If you step inside, she doesn't wake up tomorrow. I froze. Looked around, and that's when I saw a small red dot flicker briefly on my jacket sleeve, like a laser sight, before disappearing. They weren't bluffing. They were watching me, right then and there. I backed away from the door, hands in the air even though I couldn't see anyone. My heart was hammering so fast it hurt. Whoever they were, they wanted me scared, and it was working. I got back in my car and drove off the lot. After a few blocks, the phone buzzed again. Good. Now listen. We'll give you instructions tomorrow. Don't talk to anyone. Don't move the ticket again. If you do, she disappears. No signature, no number I could trace. Just the same faceless threat. I pulled into an empty rest stop off the interstate and sat there until sunrise. I kept thinking about Lily, what she might be going through, if she was even still alive. I tried to picture her voice, her laugh, anything that could ground me, but all I could hear was that message in my head, 48 hours. You're already wasting time. When the sun came up, I called Patrick Hale, my lawyer. I didn't tell him everything, just that I thought someone might be trying to blackmail me over the winnings. He got quiet for a few seconds, then said, "They contacted me too." My stomach dropped. He said he'd received an email overnight. No name, just a demand. They wanted him to confirm the trust's payout schedule, verify where the funds were being held. They even attached a photo of me at the original storage unit, like proof they knew. Patrick said he deleted the message immediately and called the state lottery office to report it as a scam, but he sounded shaken. He told me to stay somewhere safe, preferably a hotel under a different name, until we could figure out who was behind it. I thanked him, hung up, and drove straight to a cheap roadside motel near Lincoln City. Paid cash, no ID. That night, I kept thinking about Lily's video, that half sentence before it cut out. Please just tell him to do what they want. The way she said it didn't sound rehearsed. She wasn't reading a script. She was warning me. And then it hit me. If they were watching me, maybe they were watching her too. Maybe that clip wasn't current. Maybe it was old. Maybe they were bluffing. I didn't want to take that chance. The next morning, I drove back to the small bank where I'd hidden the ticket. I waited until it opened, walked in like nothing was wrong, and asked to access my deposit box. Inside, the ticket was still there. Same place, same envelope. For a second, I almost tore it apart right then. Burn it. End everything. But I stopped. If I destroyed it, Lily might die for nothing. So I did something else instead. I replaced it with a duplicate. Same paper weight, same handwriting, same fold lines. I'd made a copy weeks earlier just for emergencies, but now it was more than that. It was bait. The real ticket I sealed inside an envelope and mailed to Patrick's office under a fake sender's name. I didn't trust anyone, but I knew at least he'd keep it locked away from whatever this was. By evening, I got another message. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., bring the ticket to the old church on Route 12, alone. We'll know if you call for help. They didn't ask for proof. They just assumed I'd comply. I spent the night in that motel room, wide awake, running every possibility through my head. If I went, they might kill me. If I didn't, they'd kill Lily. Around 3 a.m., I packed a bag. Inside, I put the fake ticket, a burner phone, and a small tracking tag I'd hidden from my old job in logistics. It was the only leverage I had. If I could record anything, anyone, maybe I could turn this around. At 8:45 the next morning, I parked half a mile from the church and walked the rest of the way. The place looked abandoned. Boarded windows, cracked pavement, weeds growing through the steps. When I pushed the door open, the smell of dust and wood hit me. Sunlight streamed through broken glass, cutting sharp angles on the floor. Then I heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. A voice came from the shadows near the altar, low, calm, familiar. Put it on the table. When he stepped forward, I felt my stomach twist. It was Mark. For a second, I couldn't speak. My brain refused to connect what I was seeing. Mark, my brother, the same guy who called me a failure, the same guy who laughed when I said I needed help, was standing there like this had been his plan all along. He looked different. Thinner, meaner. His hair was shaved shorter, and his eyes had that jittery brightness that comes from living on adrenaline and bad decisions. He smirked when he saw my face. Took you long enough. I didn't answer. I just set the envelope on the dusty table in front of me. Where's Lily? He tilted his head like he was pretending to think. Safe. For now. Every muscle in my body tightened. What did you do to her? He ignored the question, picked up the envelope, and opened it. His eyes flicked over the ticket inside, the fake one, and I watched his expression change. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Smart, he said. You really thought I wouldn't check? He held it up, turned it in the light, and said quietly, You forgot the serial marks on the back. The real ticket's got micro-ink printing. This one's a joke. My mouth went dry. He laughed. Relax. I don't need your toy version. I already have what I want. I asked him again, Where's Lily? He said she was fine, that she was with someone who'd make sure I didn't do anything stupid. That's when I realized this wasn't just him. He wasn't smart enough to pull off everything. The cameras, the messages, the timing. He was the middleman. Someone else was running it. He circled me slowly like he was enjoying the power. You know, Mom was right about you. Always pretending to be the good one. Always acting like you were better than us. But look at you now. Hiding money, lying to everyone. Turns out you're just like us. I said, You kidnapped our sister, Mark. He shrugged. Collateral. I could feel my pulse in my ears. The church was empty, but I knew there were eyes somewhere. Maybe cameras, maybe people outside. If I lunged at him, I'd lose. He slipped the fake ticket back into the envelope and shoved it in his jacket. You want her back? Bring the real one. No games, no cops. Tomorrow night, same place. Then he smiled again. That same bitter teenage version of him I remembered. Oh, and don't bother trying to find her. You wouldn't even know where to start. He walked past me, his shoulder brushing mine. As he reached the doorway, he turned around and said, "Funny thing, though. She still defends you, even now. You really don't deserve that." Then he was gone. I stood there for a long time, listening to the sound of the wind rattling the broken windows. My legs felt like they could give out any second. When I finally moved, I checked my phone. The tracking tag I'd hidden in the envelope was still active. I could see it moving, slowly, heading south on Route 12. I drove after it, careful to keep distance. For about 20 minutes, it stayed steady on the map. Then it stopped near a rundown warehouse by the edge of town. I parked half a mile away, hid my car behind a cluster of old trucks, and watched through binoculars. There was only one car parked outside, Mark's beat-up blue Ford. I waited until nightfall. Then I saw movement, 2 people walking out. Mark was one of them. The other was a man I'd never seen before, taller, older, wearing a black jacket. They talked for a minute, then shook hands. The stranger handed Mark something small, a phone maybe, and walked away. Mark got in his car and drove off in the opposite direction. The signal from the tracking tag was still inside the building. My chest tightened. If the envelope was there, maybe Lily was too. I waited another few minutes, then slipped out of my car and started walking toward the warehouse. The closer I got, the heavier the air felt. Every creak of gravel under my shoes sounded too loud. When I reached the door, I pressed my ear against the metal. Nothing. Just silence. I pushed it open, slowly, and stepped inside. The air was stale and cold. Old tools, stacked crates, and somewhere in the back, a faint light flickering. I followed it. And there she was, Lily. Tied to a chair, a bruise on her cheek, but breathing, eyes closed. I ran to her, whispering her name, checking if she was awake. When she stirred, I started untying the ropes, whispering that it was over, that we'd leave right now. But before I could finish, I heard a click behind me, the unmistakable sound of a gun being cocked. A voice said, calm and familiar, "You should have brought the real ticket, Daniel." I turned around, and my heart stopped. It wasn't Mark this time. It was Patrick Hale. For a moment, I couldn't move. My brain just froze, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Patrick, the one person I thought I could still trust, was standing there with a gun in his hand, his expression calm, almost bored, like this wasn't the first time he'd done something like this. He nodded at me once. "Back away from her," I did what he said. I raised my hands and stepped back, heart pounding so hard it hurt. "Patrick, what are you doing?" He sighed, almost like I'd disappointed him. "You really think people handle that kind of money without consequences? You were never supposed to hold on to it. The moment you came to me, the moment you filed that claim through my firm, you were on a list. Do you understand?" I didn't. None of it made sense. He walked closer, keeping the gun steady, eyes locked on me. "People see $400 million and think it's just luck. It's not. It's an operation. The lottery's a machine, and I help keep it clean." "But you decided to go off the grid. You hid your name, moved the ticket, made people nervous." I glanced at Lily. She was awake now, eyes wide, tears forming. I shook my head slightly, trying to tell her not to speak. Patrick continued, voice low. "Mark was easy to recruit. Greedy people always are. I paid him to find you, to bring you in quietly, but he started asking for too much. You, though, you still have something I need." I realized then what this was about. He didn't want all the money. He wanted access, the trust account, the claim history, the legal trail, everything that could make him untouchable if the truth ever came out. He motioned toward Lily with the gun. "Untie her." I hesitated. He said it again, sharper this time. "Untie her." I did. My hands shook so badly I could barely loosen the knots. When the last rope fell, Lily didn't move. She just stared at Patrick with this cold, silent fury I'd never seen in her before. Then she said quietly, "You'll never get away with this." Patrick smiled. "I already have." He pulled a phone from his pocket and tossed it on the floor near me. On the screen was a countdown timer, 01:43:117. He said, "That's how long you have to transfer the funds from the trust. After that, this place burns, and everyone assumes your family's little feud went wrong." I asked what he meant by burns. He didn't answer. He just tapped the barrel of the gun against one of the metal drums near the wall. That's when I saw the hazard label, flammable chemicals. My chest tightened. Patrick, there's no money in the trust anymore, I said, forcing the words out. It's locked, sealed under federal oversight. You'll get nothing. He frowned. You're lying. I'm not. The payout was split. Anonymous disbursement. You'd know that if you actually checked. He hesitated just long enough for me to realize something. He didn't know. He wasn't as in control as he wanted me to think. I glanced at Lily, then at the gun. I had maybe one chance, and it was a stupid one. So I said, You're right, Patrick. The real ticket's in my car. Let me show you. He tilted his head, studying me. In your car? Yes. Under the seat. I didn't trust the banks anymore. He thought about it, then motioned toward the door. Move. We walked out of the warehouse together. Me first, Lily just behind me. Patrick keeping the gun pointed at my back. The morning air hit my face like ice. I could hear his footsteps close behind me, steady and confident. When we reached the car, I opened the door slowly and said, It's right there. He leaned down to look, just enough for me to slam the door into him with all my strength. The gun went off, a deafening crack that echoed through the lot, but it missed. Lily screamed. I grabbed the gun as Patrick stumbled back, clutching his wrist. He swung at me, hitting the side of my head hard enough to blur my vision. We fought, wild, messy, desperate, until the weapon slid across the gravel. Lily dove for it. Patrick saw and lunged, but she was faster. She pointed the gun at him with both hands, shaking, crying, but steady enough to hold it. Patrick froze. For a second, nobody moved, just breathing, ragged, heavy, terrified. Then, in the distance, I heard sirens. Patrick's eyes flicked toward the sound, and he said quietly, You shouldn't have done that. Then he ran, toward the trees behind the lot, disappearing before the police cars pulled in. The officers found Lily and me standing there, bruised, exhausted, shaking. They took statements, searched the building, but by the time they went inside, it was empty. No Patrick, no Mark, no sign of anyone else. The detectives said they'd follow up, but I could tell they didn't fully believe our story. It sounded insane. A lawyer, a rigged system, a family betrayal, who would believe that? But the part that still haunts me is what happened 2 days later. I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just a single sentence inside. You still owe us the rest. And taped to the bottom was a photo of Patrick, smiling, alive, standing next to my brother Mark. I didn't show the letter to anyone. Not the police, not Lily. I just stared at it until the words stopped meaning anything. You still owe us the rest. It wasn't over. For 2 days, I barely slept. Every time my phone buzzed, I flinched. I moved out of my apartment, booked a new place under a false name, and changed numbers again. But deep down, I knew that wouldn't matter. They already had access to everything. Lily tried to act like life was going back to normal. She was quiet, careful, still bruised around the wrists, but pretending to heal. I could tell she was doing it for me, not because she actually believed we were safe. The police called once, said they'd traced the warehouse property to an offshore company. Unregistered, fake address, no updates, no leads. It should have ended there, but it didn't. That weekend, I came back to my motel late at night. There was a plain brown envelope taped to the door, no name. Inside was a USB drive. When I plugged it into my laptop, there was only one file, a short video. The footage showed Patrick sitting at a table in some cheap hotel room. He looked tired but calm, speaking directly to the camera. He said, If you're seeing this, it means the transfer didn't go through. The people behind this won't stop until they get what's theirs. Tell him to think carefully before he decides to disappear again. Then the video ended. I checked the metadata. The video had been recorded yesterday. Patrick was alive, somewhere nearby. I stared at the dark reflection of my face on the laptop screen and realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about leverage, information. Someone much bigger was cleaning up loose ends. The next morning, I found Lily sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up at me and said, We need to leave the state. I told her that wouldn't matter. They'd find us no matter where we went. She looked at me for a long time, then said, Then we stop running. That day, we drove back to the lottery headquarters, the same building where everything had started. I walked inside, asked to see the director, and told him I wanted to revoke my anonymity clause. The woman at the desk looked confused but made a few calls. An hour later, I was sitting in a small office, staring at the official contract I'd signed months ago. Patrick's signature was there too. But next to it was a third name I didn't recognize, William Kenton. I asked who that was. The director frowned and said that Kenton was the auditor assigned to my claim. But when I pressed for details, he hesitated, checked his notes again, and said quietly, "That's odd. There's no record of him in the system anymore." The air in that room changed. He showed me the digital file. The section under auditor approval was blank, wiped clean, but someone had physically signed the paper version. Patrick hadn't been working alone. I asked if they kept surveillance from the day the claim was processed. He said yes, but access required a legal request. I told him someone's life depended on it. He agreed to check. When he came back, his face was pale. "Sir, the entire drive from that week is missing." That was when I knew. Someone inside the lottery system had erased every trace, not just of Patrick, but of me. On the drive home, I couldn't stop thinking about that signature, William Kenton. It sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it. That night, while Lily slept, I went through old files on my phone, screenshots, emails, anything from those early days after the win, and then I found it. A message from a WKentonStateFinance.org sent the day after I claimed the prize. The message was short. It said, "Congratulations on your winnings. You've made the right choice keeping this discreet. Expect contact from our office soon." Attached to the email was a digital contract, and at the bottom, small but visible, was Patrick Hale's signature. They'd been connected from the start. I didn't sleep that night. At dawn, I made a decision. If they wanted control, I'd give them something they couldn't control. The next morning, I drove 3 hours to a news station in the next state. I asked to speak to an investigative reporter and told her I had proof of financial corruption inside the state lottery system, documents, names, dates, the entire paper trail. At first, she didn't believe me, but when I showed her the original claim forms, Patrick's signature next to Kenton's, her face changed. She told me to give her a few days. That night, I called Lily and told her to pack. She asked why. I said, "Because once this goes public, we won't be safe here anymore." Before dawn, I got one last message. "You really think the truth protects you?" We built the truth, and attached was a live photo of my car, taken less than a minute ago. I dropped the phone as soon as I saw that photo. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Someone was outside, close enough to take a live picture, close enough to send it before I could even react. I grabbed Lily's bag, told her not to ask questions, and we left through the back door. I could feel her confusion, but she didn't argue. She'd learned that when I said, "Go," it meant danger was already here. We ran across the parking lot to a side street where I'd parked a rental the night before, just in case. I didn't even look back. Once we were on the highway, I told her what happened, about the photo, about the email from Kenton, about how Patrick and this organization were erasing everything. She sat quietly, staring out the window, processing it in silence. After a while, she said, "So what now? Just keep running?" I told her no. This time we weren't running. We were going to expose them completely. All of them. We stopped at a rest area so I could make a secure call to the reporter, the one from the news station. Her name was Jenna Collins. She picked up right away. I told her we were being followed, that someone had already found us. She said, "I believe you. I've been digging. You need to hear this." She explained that William Kenton wasn't an auditor. He was listed as a contract investigator for the state treasury, a position that technically didn't exist. His name showed up connected to 4 other large lottery claims, all anonymous winners who'd suddenly disappeared within months of collecting their money. The record stopped after each payout. No deaths reported, no addresses, no tax filings. Just gone. She said she'd traced Patrick Hale's bar license, suspended 3 months ago, quietly, under a sealed notice. The listed reason: misuse of client trust assets. It was a web. And somehow, I was the one thread left hanging. I told Jenna I had one of the original claim contracts, signed by both Patrick and Kenton. She told me to make copies and meet her in person, but not at the station. "If they're watching you," she said, "they'll be watching me too. Go to the Gray Ridge Library, back parking lot, 2 p.m. I agreed, hung up, and turned to Lily. "We're meeting someone who can help." She nodded but looked uneasy. "How do you know it's not a setup?" I didn't. I just didn't want to say that out loud. We reached Gray Ridge an hour early and parked a few blocks away. The whole time I kept checking the mirrors, expecting to see that gray sedan again, but the streets stayed empty. Too empty. At 1:55, I drove into the library's back lot. Jenna's car was already there, a white Toyota with the station's parking tag still on the mirror. I recognized her from her profile photo. She got out holding a folder. She smiled nervously and said, "You actually came." I handed her the envelope with the copies. She flipped through them quickly, then looked up. "This is bigger than I thought. There are at least 7 shell corporations tied to this foundation name." She pointed to the header. Henson Foundation. My throat went dry. That was the fake scholarship fund I'd created for Lily. Jenna noticed my reaction. "You know that name?" I nodded slowly. "I made it up. It was never supposed to exist outside one transaction." Her face went pale. "Then someone used it." Before I could ask what she meant, a dark SUV turned into the lot and stopped 20 feet away. Black windows, no plates. Jenna's voice dropped. "They found us." I yelled for her to get back in the car, but before she could move, the SUV door opened and a man stepped out. Tall, bald, suit jacket. He raised both hands like he wasn't here to fight. "Daniel," he said calmly, "you don't need to run. We just want the ticket." It was the same voice from the phone recordings Patrick had played in the warehouse. The man behind everything. "Kenton," Lily whispered. "That's him." He took one slow step forward. "You can't win this. You expose us. You destroy your own family. Do you really think anyone will believe your story? A paranoid millionaire hiding money, forging documents? You'll be the headline, not us." I could feel Jenna's eyes on me, waiting to see what I'd do. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a second USB, the real one, the one I hadn't given her yet. "Then maybe I'll give them something they can't ignore," I said. Kenton's expression didn't change, but his voice hardened. "You won't get that chance." Before he could move, police sirens echoed from the next street over. Jenna whispered, "I called them when you were on the way." Kenton's calm cracked for just a moment. He turned, signaled toward the SUV, and within seconds, the vehicle screeched out of the lot, tires screaming. The officers arrived moments later. 4 cars, lights flashing. Kenton was gone. I gave them the documents, the video, everything. Jenna stayed by my side, backing up every word. That night, the story broke. State lottery under investigation. Corruption and missing winners. It was everywhere. Names were redacted, but the system couldn't hide anymore. Lily and I stayed in a safe house arranged by the FBI after they confirmed the scheme reached deep into state finance offices. Patrick Hale was found 2 days later, dead in a motel near the border, apparent overdose. Mark turned himself in a week after that, terrified, saying they'd kill him if he didn't. The only one who vanished completely was Kenton. For months, the investigation dragged on. They froze the remaining funds, seized bank accounts, and questioned every employee who'd handled my case. Eventually, the truth came out. The lottery had been a front for money laundering, using fake winners and real payouts to move funds through shell charities. And my win? It was the one they lost control of. The irony still hits me sometimes. I only ever wanted to know who actually cared about me when I had nothing. Turns out, I had to lose almost everything to find out. Now, a year later, I live under a different name in Oregon. Lily's finishing nursing school. She says I look better now, calmer, even happy sometimes. But every once in a while, I still check my mail before I open it. I still pause when I see a dark SUV on the street, because last month, a letter showed up with no return address. Just one line inside, typed in the same font as before. "You can't hide forever, Daniel." And this time, there was no photo, just a single lottery number printed underneath it.